up to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Live from the apocalypse, with the power of all the Tron movies combined, this is State of the Game. And I am your left-handed host, the human guitar solo, Dano. And my co-host, it's got a tattoo that just says tattoo. I tried to talk him out of it, thought it was weird, but he's rolling with it. So I appreciate
like that.
Hey, Diggy, thank you. Allowing me to make up intros for you every week. So we have here, and I've been trying to talk to our guest for a while. This is someone who doesn't release bad music, right? Like just doesn't do it.
Thank you.
And there's one of our previous guests, Midas the Beast, has something that he always says. He always says rappers know who's really rapping, right? That there's like a guild, you know what I mean? Of rappers that really rap.
Secret society.
And he always, as an example, always says Supastition.
Wow. That's my guy too, man.
And so glad to have you on here. You've released 2 EPs that I just absolutely adore. And
thank you.
I think they need to be looked at, more in depth. So I'm glad to talk to you. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to sit down and talk to you guys, man. I know we've been trying to make it happen for a while. So, always grateful for the opportunity, man.
Yeah.
And I got to give you guys props too. Like you sent over an agenda and action items. I was like, yo, like my day job is like, I do project management. So it's like agendas, action items, notes. I was like, okay, they got it together. That's what I'm talking about, man.
I take pride in that stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not.
So if nobody else appreciates it, just know Supastition appreciates it.
That's awesome. I'm not, it is for me just because I'm like, as an organized person, getting a text of like, hey, would you jump on the podcast tomorrow? It's like, oh man. So it's nice to have that. So, but yeah, I was thinking about every last word to all that was left unsaid. Every last word was last year. There's so many interesting themes. I guess I was thinking about my intro when I talked to Stick Figure, right? One of the things I talked to Stick Figure about was I feel like one of the reasons you haven't popped is because you're too much of a normal person.
Yeah.
Like
somebody actually told me that too. I remember hanging out. I'm not even gonna say like who the artist was or whatever, but I was just hanging out with him and doing music, and he literally turned to me and says, "You know what? You're cool as hell. Like you're really down to earth." He said, "This might be why you're not famous, right?" But for me, to be honest, fame is me and fame have a weird relationship. It's growing up wanting to be Run DMC, wanting to be Redman, wanted to be Rakim, right?
Right.
I thought I wanted to be famous. What I really wanted to be was dope. Because growing up, I was just really introverted. It's weird to me now when people come up and recognize me as Supastition. You know what I mean? And I'm not famous by any means. But I realized the deeper I got into the music industry, how complicated fame is. I've seen friends basically come in the music industry and leave all their friends behind. I've seen people leave their wives. I've seen people leave their kids. I've seen people do all type of crazy shit just to be famous. Some made it and some didn't, right? But it's just like, is it really worth the sacrifice of it? So for me, I don't even focus on trying to become popular. I just focus on trying to become dope because I feel like there are people that are similar to me. Like I don't go out and try to find the most popular rapper or popular producer. I'm just trying to find the dope shit, even to this day. You know what I mean? If I'm listening for music, if I'm listening to a playlist, a mix show or something, I hear a dope song, that fan in me still like, you know what? I got to figure out who this is. I want to check his music out or whatever. But yeah, for me, fame, I'm too much. I tried to just be a regular guy. Like as far as Supastition, I'm Supastition, what, 15% of the time? Outside of that, I'm a family man. I go to work every day. it keeps me humble. You know what I mean? And every time that I felt like, you know what, I want to be famous, life always humbles me. So, you know, one thing I would say too, I'll say this real quick. I don't know if you ever watched the Bill Withers documentary.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
But Still Bill, and he's saying there's a part in there because Bill Withers walked away at the height of his career, and he said, you know, on your journey to the top, take a look around and enjoy it because that might be as far as you go, right? And so I always kind of keep that in mind. It's like me saying I'm underrated or I haven't gotten enough love to me makes me sound ungrateful for what I do have because I made it a lot further than I ever thought I would have. You know what I mean?
It's so weird. Bill Withers walking away occupies my mind in a different space than the way he articulated it, because the 80s, the early 80s was the era of the awful initial drum machines.
Yeah.
And I feel like those drum machines like ruined people's catalogs. Like
Right.
some bad Springsteen stuff, some bad like of everybody felt it, right? The drum machines were bad. Prince figured it out. He cracked the code and did stuff, but like I always think of it in my head of Bill Withers being like, no, thank you to the drum machine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because those 80s drum machines ruined a lot of music. Like, you know, it made it sound aged, like it aged poorly. Like when I go back and listen to like a lot of 80s, even 80s R&B, you hear the doom, 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 doom. You're like, oh my God, right? Versus on, you know, versus the 70s and the 60s where it was live drums and things like that.
Yeah. You think about something like the Isley Brothers, right?
Right.
Like Go For Your Guns. Like that's one of the best bands of all time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And to walk up to them and be like, hey, we got a machine, and if you program it, it can go do. You're like, get out of here with that shit, man.
Yeah, that on top of the slap bass, I think ruined the 80s music.
Ooh, that's a good call. That's a good call. But yeah, no, back to you. We'll have to clip this Bill Withers tangent. But it's been fascinating because you see the people that pop sometimes pop based on an angle, right? Like you know, oh man, this guy, he's black, but he wears Misfits t-shirts, you know, or like you know, did you know he lost an ear? Like, you know, that you know, you have these angles that work, and like, man, somebody's still running up to Asher Roth talking about I Love College. Like,
right.
You know, he's never gonna get out of that, you know.
Yeah, and that's a gift and a curse too, man. You know what I mean? Because you know, like you've got some people that are really talented, but you get that one song. It's all, you know, a lot of people get that accidental hit, right?
Right.
And that's my biggest fear, right? Getting that accidental hit that, you know, and it's the one song that I'm like, you know, I'm just gonna do some different shit. I'm gonna do some, imagine you doing like a parody and that shit blows up right now. So now you got millions of fans. It's like, well, what do I do from here? Do I continue to make music like this or stick to my guns or whatever? So, you know, to me, that shit is terrifying, you know?
Yeah, you can see the picture of like, you turn on your TV and there's a Nissan driving through a field with your song in the back, and you're like, deep sigh. I guess I gotta move on now. That's a real thing. But like, so the long way and specifically the rapper way can be a mindfuck. Like, in terms of, you know, watching. I remember when I was getting really good as a writer, and I'd go to a bookstore and I'd see Snooki's book on the front shelf, and I'm like, come on, bro. Like, it would get me mad. Like, I'm working real hard here. I'm better than Snooki. But like, it's that times 1,000, right? Because you're out here out rapping lots of people.
Thanks.
And like to be like, people that know you love your music, right? But the rest of them just don't know you. So it's,
you know what, it's surprising to me because and you know, it's from just years of just putting in work, you know, and being in your local scene too. I had the curse of the local scene where, and a lot of people probably can relate to this, is that if you get too stuck in your local scene, sometimes you start feeling you're only as dope as your local scene, right? Like you can feel like you're one of the dopest on the planet, but people may not be showing you any love in your local scene, right? And that was a thing that I went through. My homie Jay Cyanide as well, because we came from the same scene, and it was like y'all are praising these guys, like these guys are not good, you know, respectfully, they're just
Right.
not good. Like they're always just going to be local. And you can just tell, like everybody has a certain sound or whatever, but I didn't know people knew who I was until I started traveling. Right. And it still
Right.
blows my mind. Like I talked to Slug and Slug's like, yo, love your music, Brother Ali,
Right.
Evidence. You know what I mean? Not even just the name drop, but even when I, you know, I did the joint with Shad. And when I first talked to Shad, Shad was like, yo, I love your music, man. I know your stuff. And I'm like, so crazy. It just blows my mind that people kind of know who I am because I just focus on, like I said, just being dope, creating the music, and just putting in the work or whatever. You know what I mean?
It's always in
Was
that
there a moment that it shifted
Go ahead.
from you from wanting fame to just really wanting to focus on the craft?
Yeah. I would tell you the moment that it really I think hit me was when I did an album under my government name, Cam Moy. It was probably the biggest album budget that I had ever had. And that's all I want. I was like, yo, I'd love to get an album budget and have a label behind me, have this huge promo campaign behind me. And I was just forced to do certain things and go out and just, it just didn't feel natural, right? It's almost like, this is why I realized fame wasn't for me. Like, imagine you have this great idea, like even this podcast, right?
Right.
Say you got this amazing podcast, it's natural, it's growing. Somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to invest in your podcast, right? But all right, they're like, all right, but what we're gonna do first, we're gonna put a pink background back there, right? You got to wear hats with propellers, like it's the same content, right? But you know, and it's just like minor things that people don't realize that change it up. And then I realized as dealing with certain friends that I have in the music industry, them telling me their horror stories or whatever, you know, even watching little brother go through, and those are my brothers, Fontaine Pooh, my
Right.
close homies, seeing them go through that Atlantic situation and kind of get treated the way that they got treated. It was one of them things like, bro, this ain't for me, man.
What an
Like it's
incredible
just not for me.
documentary, by the way. Anybody who hasn't seen
Yeah,
that.
very dope documentary. But I think for me, that was around, I feel like this was around 2008, 2009. But that's when I realized that, man, fame is definitely not for me. And then like another thing too is, you know, and I rarely even speak on this, but a lot of producers that I started out with became famous and just never looked back, never talked to me again. It was just like, bro, like fame is, it just does something. You know what I mean? Like it's a drug. You know what I mean? So it definitely changes people. And there are some people that are able to navigate it and become famous and still remain humble because they got the right people around them. And I love and I respect that. But I just realized it just wasn't for me. Like touring, I hated being away from my family. Like I hate being away from my family for 60 to 90 days. You know what I mean? I can't imagine touring all year, you know?
No, it's and a lot of the independent artists were doing, like, you remember the Rhyme Sayers grind, like they
Yes.
would be always touring.
Always, man. Especially if you sign the Rhyme Sayers, you know, Sadiq and those cats, they put you on the road. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, even if you weren't Atmosphere, they throw you on a tour with Atmosphere. And those guys, they have the Midwest, they have it on lock. They have it on lock.
Yep. It's because you're right about the, to back to the metaphor, right? State of the game gets big, all of a sudden, pink propeller hats, and like the it's because the guy who came in and said pink propeller hats got to do it. That guy gets to go, oh, you like those guys? The pink propeller hats is me.
Right. And this guy's not a creative at all,
No,
right? He's just
no.
an investor.
No.
You know, he just
But now
likes pink backgrounds, right? Like that's his thing. So it's like, is
now
he
he's got
giving
that
you
in his resume? Yeah.
yeah, is he giving you constructive criticism because he thinks it'll make it better, or is this more of a pet peeve? And that's what I realized when making an album. Like people would say, well, I hate singing on a hook, right? Like, but that does that make the song better, right? Like it could be singing on a hook that actually sounds great. But if somebody just doesn't like singing on a hook and they're financing it, guess what? It's coming off. You know what I mean? So
No, there's all kinds of weirdness like that that takes place. Yeah, that's a big deal. And yeah, it sounds so, making that transition from my my income depends on this music So my income doesn't depend on this music. How did that change your whole outlook? What does the other side look like?
All right. So for me, like when I was telling you about me having that, like my biggest record deal that I had, um, it was so weird because financially as an artist, I was struggling, but I was conflicted because I was becoming more popular than ever. And it seemed like the more popular I got, the less money I got. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just trying to keep up with the Joneses. Like I tell people, when I dropped the Camoy Splitting the Image album, I was getting evicted from my apartment at that time, right? Like the day that it dropped, I was moving shit out or whatever. And it's like, and I had one of the biggest budgets that I had had. And it was like, I just realized, bro, it's just, bro, it's tough, man. So, but
yeah.
did I answer your question? What was your, go back to your original question?
The question, like, so you go through that, you understand, like, man, I don't even want the big screen anymore.
Right.
You, as you've said in, uh, this recent EP, uh, all that was left unsaid. You talked about how it feels to make your money somewhere else and be
Ah,
able
I
to
got you.
do
Yeah,
your
yeah,
art
yeah.
as you want. How have you felt like what is the other side of that look like? How is it different?
Okay. All right. So, like I said, when I left, well, basically I left the music industry after that project for a little while. And I still wrote music. I didn't put any music out, but I went and just got a regular day job because I was like, look, my whole life is just surrounded by music. With that, I was able to kind of reset just my way of thinking or whatever, get help for depression and all that too, because I was carrying a lot of shit or whatever. But then I realized that I liked stability a lot more than I liked the grind and the hustle. Like the grind and hustle was cool in my 20s, right? But it was a transition even getting back into the working world. I remember going in, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I went in for this job interview. And I remember walking in and they were giving me a tour of the place, and somebody was like, "Yo, Superstition." I was like, "Oh shit!" Like this ain't gonna be easy because Charlotte, like the Charlotte scene is pretty small or whatever.
Mm,
But for me, it just came down to I just had to humble myself.
mm,
Like I said, I have a great, a great career outside of music. I had to realize, am I doing this because I want to just make the money off of music, or is it I just want to make the money and feed my family? And I think my goals changed because growing up, I felt like the quickest way and the best way for me to make money was to use my talent, right?
right.
And I didn't want to have a boss at that time. But like I said, as I got older, I wanted a little bit more structure. So it's kind of a weird feeling to some people because especially people that actually come to, they see my house and they see how I live and they're just like, what do you do? So it's like, I make money outside of music, but for me, it makes the creativity that much more because I'm not creating from a sense of desperation. Like I'm not putting a project together saying this shit has to sell, right?
Right.
Like if it doesn't sell,
Mhm.
what am I gonna do? It takes away the desperation. Now I'm able to, work. I could buy better equipment or whatever. I always look at it like, and I'm not a millionaire by any means, but it's like if you hit the lottery tomorrow, right? And if you made music, you probably still wouldn't make music, probably,
Sure.
and you would, but you also are aware that, that doesn't immediately make you an artist that's going to sell millions. So you
Mm.
got the money to invest in the project. You just continue feeding your base and your fan base or whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah. There was an artist here named Spose who got like he bubbled up. He had like a local hit called "I'm Awesome." He got a label deal. They put money behind him. He made money on the label deal, and apparently he invested all that money in like his own infrastructure of like studio equipment.
yeah,
So now he gets to just like put it. He got off the label, and he puts out his music, and he's got it
wow.
covered. Yeah.
That's dope. Yeah, I took when I went on my last tour, my last full tour in 2015, I took a lot of that money and help put my wife through school. Because, you know, for a while she had just been supporting me in my dreams. And
Right.
one day she had a real conversation with me. She said, listen,
Mm.
kind of pretty much my whole life with you has been based around you and your dreams and supporting you, watching the kids. She was like, you know, I want to have a career too. I want to have a life too. And that shit was humbling, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I'm out here hustling for us. But at the same time, she was like, you know, I never signed up to be a
Right.
stay-at-home mom, right? She was like,
Mm.
I got things that I want to do and I want to accomplish. And man, I'm gonna tell you, that hit me like a ton of bricks because I was like, man, I thought I was doing like a great job. And not to say I wasn't, but it made me think about, am I doing all this stuff like in a selfish way? So it
Right.
just kind
Right.
of changed my perspective on it.
Yeah. Looking at through other people's eyes,
Right.
helps a lot. So that's, yeah, and it's that's interesting. Okay, when you heard these two projects, like, did you pick up on any common themes of like, oh, well, this is what's interesting about this person and their delivery?
I thought the first project, because I did see them as companion pieces, and I realized that
Yes.
they came back later. They came back. I'm sorry, they came out like within a year of each other.
Yes.
Right.
And so I saw the first project as being someone who's kind of processing trauma and processing how to deal with emotions. And then the second project, I view that as someone not necessarily enlightened, but someone who now had these tools and was walking through life and what that looked like.
Bro, I'm gonna tell you, you 100% get it, right? Like you broke that shit down better than I could because that was actually my intention. So when I recorded every last word, um, one of my closest best friends had just passed away. My biological father had just passed away. My wife was recovering from cancer. So it was like every last word was me recording in the moment, right? Just trying, like you said, trying to process that trauma. It's spontaneous. Whatever I felt, I wrote it. And then when it got down to all that was left unsaid was me looking at things in hindsight, saying, okay, you know, you lost these people, you went through this, but look at what you've accomplished. Look at what you've made it through as well. So it's exactly the way that you said that. And I'm glad that, you know, people see the perspective and see what I'm trying to accomplish because they were supposed to be released one after the other. I dropped every last word. And then you know, we had a record deal for Speaker Bullies, well, a distribution deal, and they hit me up and was like, "Hey, I see you doing this project, but we need to go ahead and drop Speaker Bullies." You know, not to say just they piggybacked off the momentum, but it kind of, to me, kind of fucked up the rollout a little bit, right? I wanted
Hmm.
these really to be right after the other or whatever, but yeah, it was supposed to be released in tandem, kind of right after each other.
Right, because Speaker Bullies is super dope. I love it,
Thank you.
but it reminds me of what is that album called? It's it's a Sky Zoo album with like, do you remember it was like trunk rattling stuff? And it was
Which
like
was it?
finally Sky Zoo making stuff for the car, and it was like, oh shit, okay,
Which I'm
speakers
trying to
on
think of it.
blast and stuff like that.
I know he had the Barrel Brothers with Torre. I'm
Yep.
familiar with some of
Live from the
Sky Zoo's.
tape deck with
Oh
Ilma.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Ilma.
for sure. Yeah, that was a dope project too. Shout out to Sky Zoo. That's the
Yeah,
homie too.
so
So
live from the tape deck with Ill Mind was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it was just a joy to listen to every time. Put in the car, turn it way up. Speaker Bullies is like that to me. Speaker Bullies
yeah,
is like, this is great. We're on our bullshit today,
yeah,
and like this, these two are different. These two are not like that, and so yeah, I can see how interspersing that would be. Would be.
yeah. It's like it's almost like you watching a season of like, you know, I don't know if you ever watch like I don't know, just the Shogun, right? The series Shogun or whatever that
Right,
was. I was
right,
like watching Shogun, and then you have to right in between the season of Shogun, you're like, all right, let me start this season of this horror, like American Horror Story or something, right? Like it's just like,
right.
so you got to kind of adjust. So when Speaker Bullies came out, I was like, damn, now I got to get back up. Now here I am processing trauma, right? Like
Yep.
going through all this serious stuff, and now I got to focus on an album of just me talking shit, me being disrespectful, and
Yep.
all of that. And I'm just like, bro. So by the time I came back to do All That Was Left Unsaid, I'm like, well, all right, I guess, we're back here again, So
Well,
yeah,
like the comp would be like you're watching a comedy with your kid, and then the streaming service loads an ad, and it's like a slasher movie, and you're like,
yeah, exactly. Right. Right. That shit just came out of nowhere. That's how I felt with it. And Speakables,
yeah,
I love that project. For us, we just wanted to do just some rah-rah shit. Like how, the Red and Meth album was, you
yep,
know what I mean?
yep,
Like it was kind of just a fun album. And then everything else, like seems like a lot of music is just no drums or just kind of really just really laid back. And I'm always the type of guy I want to whatever everybody else is doing, I'm going this way. You know what I mean? So
right, yeah, and just people should give themselves a permission to do that. Sometimes people will be like, "What do you think I should do with my next record?" And I'm always like, "Make a party record."
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Can can you think of how many great hip hop party records there are? Full albums, like it's an
yeah,
elite list, right?
yeah,
It's not, I just think people should challenge themselves and try and because
yeah.
dark and spooky there's a lot of that.
Right.
There's people who are great at it, like who
It's
can do.
crazy. The term party record has changed so much
Yep.
because like The Bridge Is Over was a party record back when it came out, right? Like
Yeah,
Rob Bass, It
yeah.
Takes Two was a party record. Now it's weird. Like a party record is what Coil Ray or something like that, man. It's
Oh,
weird. Like
right.
it's just, it's like damn, like we can literally dance to anything, but it's changed. But I think too, it's hard to make party records that are 78 BPMs let you slow dancing, right? Like
Right. I mean, the example of like the Roots, How I Got Over
Yeah,
is like a party record about poverty, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. I never thought
it's
about it like that.
that's
It's
fucking
right.
it's fucking great. Like it's the one I go to first. Like
Yeah,
but yeah, that it's like that. It's really good. But I think giving yourself permission to do that is good. It just there's some things on this that I feel like I understood. Like so to get deep here, okay, like
Mhm.
I am the type of person, if I get mad, like you know how people get mad and be like, let me step away and cool down. It's the opposite for me. I
right.
step away and I'm bubbling. I'm all alone. I'm running the factors again. You know, I'm giving myself propaganda in my own
Right.
mind. And I'm getting mad at that. You know what I mean?
That could be
And,
dangerous, man.
and Make It Home felt like that. Like
Right.
where you're like, oh, this is somebody who will bubble and boil over
Yeah,
given
yeah,
the chance and knows it. Like you're old enough to know this about yourself. And you're
right.
like, all right, how do I figure this out?
Yeah.
How do I get this thing out of here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Make It Home was one of those records, and for people don't know, it's basically about me dealing with kind of just bottled up anger and things like that. Like it's just going through stuff in your life and not dealing with it. You don't realize it carries over. It carries over into different things, right? Like you might flip out in the workplace. You might have road rage now. You know what I'm saying? Like people don't realize like all of this comes from something, and then living and my man, he knows because he if he lived in Jonesboro, he knows about Atlanta traffic, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
you can be an ordained minister. When you get behind that wheel, you're like, man, what the fuck is going on? So it's like I had to realize that because I kept finding myself like becoming another person while I was driving. And then I realized, the same thing that happens with road rage is the same thing that happens with a lot of people on the internet, right? Like they get behind their computer and they just turn into something else. And it's a lot of just anger that hasn't been dealt with. And for me, like I said, man, I just had trauma and you got to get therapy and talk to somebody about it because you just never know. Like even with working an everyday job, if you work a stressful job and you come home, I mean, you have the worst day. And your kids come home and say something, and you just flip. Like you
Mm,
just, you know what I'm saying? You just kind of, not of course not like beat them or nothing like that, but you just kind of respond to them
snap on
and
them.
kind of like you snap at them,
Right.
and then you're just like, damn, like that wasn't about what they did or what they said. It's about all this other shit that I'm carrying. So You know, Make It Home is one of those things like that. You know, it's got a verse where I'm talking about somebody's acting, you know, somebody's driving crazy, basically damn near about to run me off the road, and I'm thinking of flipping out. But I'm looking back and I'm like, my son is in the car, so I really have to think this through or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things, man. So like I said, I just try to speak from a different perspective or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think hip hop has already mastered anger. You know what I'm saying? We've mastered kind of the rebelliousness. I think at some point, you know, we've got to make more vulnerable records because our OGs are going to be in their 50s and 60s, man. They can't be
Right,
still
right,
rapping about slinging dope and fighting and shit like that. You know what I mean?
right.
Shooting people.
Or vacations either. There's got to be middle ground.
Right,
No.
exactly. Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and well, and this is still about anger, but it's like the second and third dimension of anger, right? It's
Mhm.
like, how does anger live in the real world? Like when you have other goals and other missions, right? Like, and so that's one of the things that, because everybody's going through the situations you're articulating, they're just sometimes only giving you the front of it, right?
Mhm.
So like when they go to pick up their kid, everyone's like, "Whoa, that's the super violent rapper," and you're like, you know, they just haven't articulated the rest of the story.
Right, right. Because there's not, I mean, there's some, but there's not a lot of rap songs talking about walking away from fights, right? Like being a
Right,
bigger man or whatever, you know what I'm
right,
saying? Like, except for Montel Jordan, you know, the gangbangers forgot about the drive-bys. That's about it, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
that doesn't happen too often. Must have been
Well,
a hell of
it's
a party, man.
the one that comes to mind that I always think about, and it's the reason Ka follows me on Twitter. There's a song called "Patience" by Ka.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's incredible, man. That
on
guy's incredible.
Ironworks that is like it's literally a multitude of different situations where he walks away from fights and
Mhm.
hurting people and like, and I was like, this is the most interesting person in the world. Like this
Yeah.
is incredible. Like the emotional intelligence to see yourself in that moment. Yeah, it's a
Right. And
that's
that's big of him too. And anybody knows if you've ever walked away from a fight or walked away from a situation where you know you could fuck somebody up, right? I'm gonna
ooh,
tell you, like being the bigger man does not feel good, right? Because you walk away and you kind of like, damn, am I a bitch?
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's been some situations where I've been in, and it's just like I can't respond this way, but then I gotta walk away for because I know what's best for me. I know it's for my family. But then I get home and lay down at night, and I just feel like there's this devil on my shoulder, like you bitch ass.
Right.
So
I mean, well,
you know,
that's it. And I, being in the army was where I first cracked the code of like, oh, that dude has nothing to lose,
right? Yeah,
nothing to go home to. Like he's ready to headbutt anybody. Like, let's go, you know?
that's facts.
And if you have stuff that you care about that would lose, you're at a disadvantage
Yeah,
to that
yeah.
person. You know, like I've had friends didn't even really like being out of jail. You know what I'm saying? Like life out of jail wasn't that cool. Like they weren't into it.
Yeah,
And so you bump into him in the club, it's not good. You know,
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
it's not
That's
good.
real.
And you won't know till it's too late.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what's crazy is like that might be the one day you decide, you know what? Next person step on my foot is on, right? But then you meet that guy, right? Like
Yep, yep,
so
yep. Yeah. Like he hates his job. He's like, man, I had it in there.
got nothing to
But
lose.
yeah, but that's yeah, Make It Home's an important song in that journey. Um, and that was like, yeah, 6 songs really tied things together. Um, yeah, I mean, would you say, Kate, is it I think the run is probably 3, 4, 5, right? Like Make It Home, Head Above Water, Scatterbrain
Oh, so like okay,
on
so
the first one.
between so like the last half kind of.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah. I
Scatterbrain's really important to me. I think it's a really important part of understanding this.
yeah. Yeah, I mean I think it's like what's the best way to say it, like it warms up. The album warms up as it goes, as it
Right.
gets going.
Yeah.
It's like a car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
so I
kind
mean,
of I want
I go old man strength, make it home, head above water, and then scatterbrain.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, because I wanted, especially for every last word, I wanted the project to be kind of a gradual increase, right? You know what I mean? Like it
Mhm.
has to have a build up because my plan was that it has to go into all that was left unsaid. And I feel like by the time you get to all that was left unsaid, we should be on cruise control at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it just kind of, and then also looking at kind of the tempo, I was trying to figure out the tempo and the concepts, right? Like I wanted, um, I wanted certain songs to be kind of at the end to kind of lead into it or whatever. And I always, for me, most people put their strongest songs first. I
Mhm.
try to put my strongest songs towards the end of the album or, somewhere in the middle because I want you to remember it. If the strongest song's at the end or whatever, and especially if you've got them for that long and they're listening, you want to end it on a good note. It's like a movie with a bad ending, right? Like
Yeah.
everything else is good, but you get to the end and it's not memorable at all. So I always try to make sure I have a strong song at the end. I think for all that was left unsaid, it was He Who Remains. So I wanted
He
to
Who
leave
Remains is
people on something like
fantastic.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I when I first listened to all that was left unsaid, I didn't understand it as easily as I did every last word.
Right.
Um, but think I might like it better ultimately.
Wow. Okay. Yeah,
Um,
for me, I personally listened to all that was left unsaid more than every last word. But then again, all that was left unsaid is me in a better place, right? Like,
Yeah.
going back to listen to every last word is anger, it's trauma in there, it's grief, it's so many things in there. So with all that was left unsaid, I could kind of put that on and not feel, that past trauma and things like that. It just somebody told me one of the best compliments somebody gave me about it, and it's simple. They just said, "Yo, it's a beautiful hip hop record," and I was like, "Wow, I really appreciate that." So,
yep.
it's and it seems like it resonates with people more because a lot of times, like with Speaker Bullies, people are like, "Yo, this album's dope as shit." You know what I mean? But I've heard people talk to me and give me their stories, based on songs that was on all that was left unsaid. Like, yo, I like the way you talked about this, and somebody came up to me and also said too, these records, I had a conversation, they were saying these records are important because um as OGs in the game and as being older men and
Mhm.
women, we have to show people how to age gracefully because hip hop's
Yeah.
only 50 years old, right?
Yep.
Right.
So we are now seeing for the first time rappers getting old, right? So it's not like the first generation of rappers have all died and we
Mhm.
know where to go from here. So right now we're kind of building what it looks like to be a 30-year-old rapper, 40-year-old rapper, 50-year-old rapper, and people haven't seen it. So initially people are going to think it's corny, right? But at some point we will get to that point where we're like the Rolling Stones or whoever. We can tour for as long as we want. We can continue to make music. But right now, like I said, hip hop is still technically young. So we're seeing our legends and pioneers grow old for the very first time. We're the generation that's really seeing that. So
Right. Right.
What do you think? You mentioned Rolling Stones. What do you think makes like the rock music, like the Rolling Stone music? What do you think makes that so timeless that they can tour on it to this day?
it's crazy because this is my personal opinion on it, and I don't know if a lot of people agree with it. So with
Mhm.
hip hop, is that hip hop is based on street culture, urban culture, where everything's trendy, everything's cutting edge, right? It doesn't matter if it's sneakers, clothing, cars, dogs, liquor.
Yeah.
It's here one day. Y'all still drinking that? Man, we stopped drinking that years ago, right? Like it's certain sneakers, man. We don't wear that anymore. You know what I mean? And I think just street culture in general and urban culture in general treats almost everything like that. And music is just falling victim to that because there are still people that came up in the original era of hip hop and they're looking at people like, y'all are still breakdancing? Like y'all are still scratching records? So to me, I feel like as a culture, I think we need to do better with preserving history. Um, when especially me growing up in like the 80s and 90s hip hop, there was like a big resurgence of like appreciation for Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, H. Rap Brown, and things like that. I don't really see that as much now. So, and so even from a historic standpoint, I just don't feel like people really appreciate history in urban culture and in Black culture. And I just feel like we could do a lot better with that. So I feel like that's one of the things too that I think a lot of these rock groups and pop groups have, is that, you know, they just have a more appreciation for it. And maybe it's a thing too, is like, you know, when you look overseas, you see people internationally, like these acts are traveling. They're still traveling, they can tour. Like I've seen groups that can do full tours outside of the US, but come to the US and they're in a 200, 300 crowd venue or whatever. So I just think as a culture, we just need to embrace history a little bit more and appreciate it, man. Like this is a culture that we invented, we curated. It's like we should still embrace it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, no, to build on your point, there's a book called How the Beatles Destroyed Rock and Roll by Elijah Wald.
Mhm.
And it really does dig into this kind of thing what you're talking about, where like his explanation is Black artists were always on thinner ice with the labels, right?
Very true. Yeah,
So
very true.
the example he gives is Aretha Franklin, right? Most important singer in the world, disco comes, bye.
Yeah.
Right. So Black artists, there was always a lot of pressure on the Black artists from the label to adjust to the new era quickly, right? There's a hot song like this, you better have your version of it. And so that's, you know, and that's where you start to see in the 70s, like Black musicians with like folk covers and things like that, you know, like trying to cross-pollinate. Whereas white musicians were like, they would just give Fleetwood Mac like a ton of cocaine and a big budget and be like, come out of there with an album, you
Yeah.
know?
After they've all had sex with each other, Fleetwood
Right,
Mac.
right. And so the only Black artists that were able to do that back then were like
Yeah.
Parliament, right?
Right.
Parliament had that setup, but probably that was about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I also think like with hip hop too, we gotta stop disrespecting like our pioneers, no matter even if you're younger, right? Just say you don't see the most popular rock guitarists right now shitting on Eddie Van Halen and you know what I'm saying, Jimi Hendrix and all that. Like they pay homage to it. Sometimes with hip hop, it's like, yeah, they did what they did, but we're in now. It's like you can coexist, right? You can be dope at what you do, you can be great at what you do without disrespecting the older artists. And I
Yeah.
just feel
But
like people definitely need it because if they don't, because disrespect breeds disrespect, right? So if you got younger artists right now disrespecting the older artists, then the generation that comes after them is just going to continue to disrespect. It's going to be to a point where what happened yesterday doesn't matter. It's all about today and it's all about the future. So, you
I
know,
mean,
that's just my personal opinion.
and I also think that the empathy has to work, like, and the context has to work, right? So like I don't like it. Sometimes like an interviewer will go up to 16-year-old rapper and be like, what's your favorite Rakim song? And the 16-year rapper's like, what the fuck are you talking? I don't fucking listen to Rakim. Oh shit. Well, little so and so disrespected Rakim.
Yeah.
Like, no, he's 16. He doesn't know, like,
Right.
he's not gonna freestyle over, the Gangstar beat. He doesn't fucking know that shit. Like,
Yeah. And you have to think how far removed a 16-year-old is from Rakim, right?
right.
Like I can think of my oldest daughter is 30 years old, right? She probably doesn't know who Rakim is, right?
Right.
So then you get to my 20-year-old. She definitely doesn't know. And then my son doesn't know. So imagine asking somebody at my son's age about Rakim. It's like, who the fuck is this? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like it's just generations removed or whatever, you know? So
Gotta be mad at
it's
all
like
these
what you say.
generations and shit. Like, it's,
And then it's a headline at that point, like so and so's disrespected Rakim or whatever. And meanwhile, you know, people my age are like, man, you can't disrespect the God, you know. So,
right.
but you know, it's how they play into it a lot of times too. So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So that I think there's context for everything. But I think this environment, and you are partially responsible for how good we have it, right? The transition you make from like relying on this to this is my community. I'm gonna, this is merit based. I'm gonna fight up, this, and I'm gonna keep the bar high. Uh, it has kept the bar high, and I think we have just a lot of great lyricism happening, especially in the underground, right?
Mhm.
Like we have a lot of people doing great work. And what it has done is force the audience to discuss what the attributes of great lyricism are.
Yeah.
And those discussions are actively happening.
Yeah. And I think it's weird because, you know, people outside of the underground, we think people don't like lyrics and respect lyrics. It's not that they don't respect it. They just want it from their favorite artists, right? Because perfect example was like, it's been talked about 1,000 times, but the Drake and Kendrick Lamar battle. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, now we care about lyrics. Now we're deciphering lyrics. Now, you know what I mean? We're breaking down bars and all of
Yeah.
these things, but it's like people didn't want that prior to a battle or something like that. But it's like, hey, we can't, I can't do what they can do, but there are people that have lyrics and that have complex rhyme schemes and that are doing some groundbreaking shit in the underground and in the independent world. And I don't think people are paying attention. So usually when people say they want more of something, it doesn't mean they necessarily want us. They just want their favorite artist to be doing that, right? Like they would love for
Yeah.
their favorite artist right now to, be the dopest rapper on the planet or talk about different things or whatever, but they don't want to step outside their comfort zone and check for music. And I also have to remember that people like us we're people that kind of search for music, right? We actually search and want to find dope shit. We get a thrill out of finding a new artist
Mhm.
that we've never heard or a dope song. There's a group of people that don't care about that. They depend on the radio and other people to tell them what's dope and what's cool, and they're completely fine with it. So it's all, I always say we're like, it's like the poster in the background, like we're the Mandalorians, right? Like we got a certain code that we
Oh, that's
live by, and people think we're kind of fanatical about it, but it's just the way we are as
that's
hip
a
hop
great
heads.
comparison, the Mandalorian comparison. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and I think because you remember there was an era where like everybody was just like, you hear that ad lib? I love that ad lib. And that was like the whole thing. Was
Right.
like that was like that maybe the Jeezy era of like
Yeah.
ad lib is king,
Right. Yeah.
Um, and now people are breaking down bars and subliminals and screenshotting and you see people running bars after the release for weeks and weeks.
Right.
Awesome, man. That's really cool that people are engaging on that level and pulling things apart. Um, and it benefits somebody like you does that work.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. And I also think too is like if you look at kind of the resurgence of battle rap, like there's people that listen to nothing but commercial music, but they watch battle rap, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
they like lyrics. It's kind of like I always look at it like chicken wings in a strip club. Like I like chicken wings, I like titties. I just don't want them in the same place. Like that's how they treat commercial music and
Yep.
lyrics, right? Like, I like commercial music. I just don't want these lyrics on the radio. I don't want this at my parties or whatever. But then I'll sit back and I'll watch these battle raps and all these technical bars and rhyme schemes, and I'll love every bit of it. So
And that's a great point because you've seen somebody like Doja Cat, who's like always posting about all the crazy hip hop stuff that she loves and listens to. Like
yeah,
one of her favorite artists is Homeboy Sandman and everything. She's
yeah,
posting about that recently. But like she's shooting for a wider kind of Nicki Minaj Rihanna lane
right.
with her music, but she sneaks some of that hip hop head in
Mhm.
uh the
Yeah.
back door sometimes. So
Yeah,
it's
she understands that balance. There's certain artists that, they understand. Like you can tell they're a fan of, certain type of stuff that we probably listen to on a regular, but at the same time, they know in order to sustain or maintain a career, they have to do certain type of things or
But
whatever. Or maybe,
I mean,
it's
the
just their
music's
choice.
become their job in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right.
yeah, yeah. No, that's one of the things that like it's totally okay to walk away and be like, no, thank you to that. Like, I want this to be fun for me all the time, right? Um, if you can't accept like the marketing of it, you know, then don't.
And then
And there you go.
Superstition, I had a question. How did your art change after you became, after you got like like a day job, like a regular job, like you made that transition? How did that affect your art?
Okay. As far as my art and my direction, it didn't really change it too much. It affected my process more than anything.
Mhm.
Versus like when I could sit down and write, 2, 3 songs a day and just record every day and all day. I had to figure out what's the best way and what's the most efficient way for me to create music. So, um, and I think I said this on Rhett Maddox podcast. It was like, I know I can't sit down and write a full song when I got the kids in the house or the wife's in the house. So I'll just write down ideas throughout the day and things like that. Collect samples, records, and all of that. So when I finally sit down and I'm able to work on it, I'm not working from like an empty canvas, right? There is no writer's block because now I've got these ideas that I've collected over the past month or so. So now I can sit down and focus on that. As far as the art goes, I think I'm more free to express myself and be myself because now I'm not dependent on the finances from the music. And I think now that's why my music now is so personal because now I can be 100% me because I'm the one financing these records. You know what I mean? I think I said a bar like only one pushing these records. Who else is pulling for me? So it's like I can do what kind of whatever I want with music and be myself and make the music that I want without having somebody kind of in my ear. I always say too, one of the worst advice that somebody ever gave me when music was tone it down, right?
Ooh,
They was
yeah,
like, yo, because you was like, yo, you're rapping, but you're doing like way too much rapping, right? Like you got to tone it down. And I understand that from a certain standpoint, but there are brothers out there that are really rapping right now and doing well. And to me, I felt like it was like I was using 80% of what I had because I was scared to kind of bar out. I was scared that people wouldn't get it. It's like, man, fuck all that. Be the artist that you are, right? You're going to gain the people who truly like what you do. Don't focus on everybody else that's, one of the biggest, I think, things that artists go through is you look at an artist similar to you and you say to yourself, I'm doing damn near what they're doing, but they have more fans. They have, just more everything. And I think it's discouraging at that time. So it's like, man, do what the fuck you do. It doesn't matter. I always tell people like 200 supporters is better than 2,000 spectators, right? So when I drop these projects, I don't expect to sell 5,000 units. If I can press up vinyl and sell 100 of them motherfuckers in 30 days, that's a win for me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you've got to kind of know your audience and cater to your audience and know what's best for you. And then it's like, too, you can't be frustrated. And I was a victim of this in the beginning. I would make music for a small core group of people, and then I would be mad that a gang of people didn't support it, right? It's like,
right,
so,
right, right.
so hip hop is already difficult because we're some of the most pickiest people, right? So say you've got a guy that says, I don't listen to no commercial stuff. I listen to underground hip hop, right?
Yeah.
First thing you got to do is you have to have the production that he likes, right? He might not like singing on the hooks. He might like scratching on the hooks, right? He might like people rapping about certain shit. You can check all those boxes, and in independent hip hop, people will be like, I still don't like this shit. Right. So,
I mean,
so we are the most, it's like, like trying to match like on a dating site, right? You check all the shit that you like in a person, and then they give you that perfect person. You just like, nah, that's not it. That's kind of our hip hop taste. So I had to realize I'm only working and I'm only doing music for a very small group of people. And once you understand that, I think you can make some of the best music that you can make. So,
yep. And once you've set in place, here are my ethics, here are my standards, here's what I like to do. If you're building on that, the audience will come along with you. I remember like your Stolly dropped Lincoln Way
yeah.
Nights, right? And it was super fun, car music. you know, Everyman stuff. He followed it with a mixtape that was a concept album based on Hunter Thompson.
Yeah. I don't think I heard that one. Yeah.
And he was super mad that everybody didn't get it. And I'm like, dude, this is not what we came here for.
Right.
Yeah, we went to the grocery store and they tried to sell us tires. We were like, what is going on?
Right. Stolly, like his music, I remember him just making music for the trunk, right? Like just
Right,
making music to
right.
ride to and stuff like that too. So, but it's
Yeah,
not
and
his bass. Like I know that even when I have a certain bass, but I know if I do too much positive shit or too much commercial shit, I know they're just not going to respond well.
right.
So it's like, well, either you can feed your base. I think I tweeted this too, and I said, as long as you make shit that's dope to you, you'll never be disappointed in what you put out, right? Because if you try to make a project based on what you think people are going to like and you put it out and they hate it, now you both hate it. You hate it because you try to impress them. They hate it because they just don't like the shit. Now you've just got a project that you just don't even want to support. So make the music that you like, and if people fuck with it, they fuck with it.
No, and that's the whole thing with the 80%, like the tone it down advice. It's murder. It was because that person who said it doesn't have to live with the ugly feeling of having like, man, I could have given the 100, but I only got to give the 80. Like
Right.
that stinks as a creator. That you feel that aftertaste for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And you never know who's that first person that's gonna hear you, right? So imagine you give them 75%. This might be the first time somebody hears you. Doesn't matter who it is. That could be their first and last time listening to you if you're not, giving your all or whatever too. So
Can you imagine your first like someone listens to your new shit, they're like, this shit is awful, and someone else they're like, it is awful, but he was great in 2015. Like, man, I don't give a fuck about 2015. Like that.
I tell this story. I told this story before. This is why I rap the way I rap now, and I give 110% every time. Right? There was a guy that reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, I want to get you for a feature." And I'm like, "Damn, I've done like 2 features for this guy. He's never put the shit out." So I'm like, "All right, I'm just gonna go in and do this feature." Right? I just found a random rap that I had, recorded it. I was like, "I'm not getting paid for it anyway, so just send it over." Right? Guy hits me back like a couple months later, like, "Hey, I got Royce on this song." I'm like, "Huh?" Then he hits me back like a month later, like, "I got Elzai on this song." So that song ended up being the best to do it with me, Royce, and Elzai. And I'm like, "Yo, I gotta redo my verse." He was like, "Nah, man, we already mixing this shit." I'm like, "Yo, are you kidding me?" So listen to me when I tell you, bro, give 100% to everything you do because you never know who is going to show up.
That is one of my favorite stories we've ever heard, Kay.
Every time I listen to that, I'm like, damn, bro. Like,
oh man.
A good life lesson.
Yeah, it
Great
is, man.
lesson.
It really is, man.
But yeah, and shout out to PQ on these covers, by the way.
Oh yeah, shout out to my guy PQ, man.
PQ,
really good brother. He's doing a lot of artwork for different people and stuff like that. I think I saw him on Sleep Sinatra's project.
Yep.
And then I reached out to him. So shout out to Sleep as well, man.
Yeah, Sleep is amazing. Yeah, so I'm glad that you're getting the recognition on here and maintaining the high standards. A lot of the conversations that I've had about you have been like texting people and being like, all these hip hop heavyweights, I'd rather listen to Supastition.
Wow, man, that's major for me, man.
And the person will just hit that back and be like, Superstition's dope. Like just think like it's a known thing. And that's like,
it feels weird to kind of get this type of love like later on, because I went through a long period of time of like, and I think some artists, we go through that, man. It's like you feel like you're creating dope shit that nobody cares about, right? It's like, how long can I keep creating this or whatever? It's like, damn, like I know I'm doing this at a high level. But I think also, everything is about timing, right? Like everything is God's timing. And I'm grateful too that this is coming to me now at a time where I can appreciate it. Like a time where my mental health is good, time where I'm stable and I could do this. Because if it came to me back when I wanted it, I don't know if I would have been able to handle it with everything that comes with the music industry and all the pressure and stress. Like, I just don't know if I would be able to handle it. So I always feel like it's a blessing too. Like,
Well, yeah, and it's different. I think the reason why you're getting this love now is like there's a lot of dope rappers that are on like a Jeremy Lin trajectory. And like people look around after all and go, "Man, Superstition's still giving me 20 and 10 every fucking night."
yeah. Yeah, that's what I had a bar on there on All That Was Left Unsaid, and I was like, making dope shit consistently is not a L, right? Like,
Right,
a lot of
right,
people try to downplay you and say, yo, you don't have a classic album, or you
right.
don't have that classic album. But it's like, yo, if I've been dope for 20 years, that's a damn, you know what I mean? That's a hell of an accomplishment, right? Like, the classic album in sports terms is like, NBA terms is like not getting that championship, not getting that ring, right? But you can't downplay, a player like Dominique Wilkins or whatever. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't downplay a Russell Westbrook, right? Like, people that are just, they've been good for a while. And so to me, that's how I look at, from a music standpoint, man.
Yeah, ask Jizza how fun it is to have one album that everyone comes back to over and over again. I'm not.
Right.
I'd love to hear not an interview, just over a beer, just how fun that is.
Yeah, and this generation remembers him from the Guitar Center. What was it? The little sampler
right.
commercial where he
Yep.
made that horrible beat.
Oh my! Oh, the RZA, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he's and RZA is one of the greatest, man. But
Yep. Yeah, it is. I mean, the trajectories are all over the place, but like I said, you've been solid for so long.
thank you,
Yeah,
man. Thank you.
sometimes you sit there, you're like, the way I've always framed that for people is like classic albums, sure, but if I took this person and made a greatest hits of them, it's a better greatest hits than this person.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
So
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's I think the answer to that thing. And yeah,
Yeah.
so
For me, it's like I just honestly, I still want to be dope. I still get that same feeling when I hear a dope hip hop song from another artist, and I'm like, man, I want to make some shit like that. Like, the same feeling I got when I heard Run DMC, Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, Outkast. It's like I still hear artists now, and I'm like, yo, I want to make some dope shit, man. Like, I still want to be dope. I know at some point, I'm gonna have to hang it up and walk away from it, but I want to go out on a high note, right? I don't want to be Michael Jordan on the Wizards, right? Like, I just,
right,
like,
right.
I don't want to overstay my welcome, because in hip hop you can't do that too. You can overstay your welcome a
Absolutely.
long time too. So
Yep. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The Kay, do you have anything else? Do you want to go to recommendation corner?
No, let's go to recommendation.
Oh, I'm ready for recommendation corner. There's a song on the new Bad Boys soundtrack.
Mhm.
Flo Milli has a new
Oh,
song
yeah.
called Duh, and it's entirely based off the melody to Suzanne Vega's Tom's Diner.
da, 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 da.
It starts with her doing the da, 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 da,
Wow.
and then the beat drops in with that melody, and she just goes full Millie over it. It's fantastic. But like, that got me back into Suzanne Vega, and I was listening to Solitude Standing from '87, with Luca and Tom's Diner, and like, I posted a tweet earlier that my math teacher sang Luca at me in the middle of math class once, and I was like in love with her for a few minutes. Uh, uh, like it was just that song was huge in the '80s, and yeah, it's a really cool album. It's really lyrical and really interesting. Um,
Wasn't Tom's Diner a song about stalking, right? Like, was it?
I think so. I think so.
When you
And,
listen to the lyrics or listen back, like,
and Luca was about like spousal abuse or domestic violence, right? Wasn't it like
right.
that? Luca was like, "I can hear you from the other door. Are you okay?" Like,
Yeah,
yeah, he was
that's
going
funny.
hard in the '80s, bro.
Hey.
Like, there's a reason, Kay. Everybody from the '80s got made fun of in the '90s. Nobody was talking shit about Suzanne Vega. She went hard. So I appreciate that. And yeah, check that out. The other one, Kay, I don't know if you've heard, but Odyssey has a new EP.
No.
It's
What's the
called
name of it?
Get Still. It's 6 songs. Uh Man, and the thing is, Odyssey's been dope forever. We all know Odyssey's been dope.
Yeah.
He's a really good producer. He's really, I just think his voice is the best it's ever been. In terms of how he uses his voice, I think he's getting more, he's stretching out more with it. Songs like Live from the DMV, I'm like, ooh, like is I there was a debate between me and my friends sometimes about like, is Odyssey too workmanlike? Is this, too workmanlike? And I think in these last few albums, you've seen him really stretch with the voice and do different things. And I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah. I think my favorite Odyssey project, and I've had a chance to work with Odyssey on a couple joints. And shout out to Ken Starr as well, and Kev, Kev Brown. The Diamond District project from Odyssey is my favorite with YU and EXO, bro. I
Classic.
love that album, bro. Like,
That
that
shit is
shit,
a classic.
production, rhymes,
Yeah.
all of that shit. I think I remember me and my guy Jay Side and I, we would play the Diamond District album, and then we play the UN's album, right? UN or You Out. And I'm just like, yo, these just hard records, man. So
Yeah, Diamond District album was amazing. That's great. Everybody grab it. The other one, Kay, I don't know if you've heard about this, the Nobody Planning to Leave, Shrapnel and Controller 7.
That's coming out soon, right?
It already did come out. The album came out.
Okay.
We are interviewing them soon. And we are
that's
seeing them
yeah.
soon. So it's great, but the guest features are incredible. Open Mike Eagle has an incredible verse. Breesley Bruin, crazy.
shout out to Breeze. That's my guy. We got joint together.
Oh,
And Queen Heroin too. We got a joint together.
oh my God, I love.
I feel like I could go to their family reunion, bro. Them God, Juggernauts is so dope, man.
Juggernauts is so.
Oh, they're so dope,
And-
man. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just had to
Yeah.
show love to Breeze and Heroin, man. Like Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, man.
Elucid is so, it was on there and he's great. The one that really that's really fascinating as a guest verse is Henry Osborne's guest verse on Steel Pan Labyrinth. He was in Gray Skull, and I'm like, man, I got to go back in and listen to more Henry Osborne. So I think I'm gonna dig into that next.
Yeah, I haven't heard that name in a while. He's dope though, man. He's
Unique, just a
Yeah.
unique artist, and they love that shit. Like Castro, Prem, they love those kind of artists, like Thurston Howell the Third, or people like
Yeah.
no one sounds like this motherfucker. No,
Right. Yeah.
And Henry Osborne's on that list for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, Castro, the people I want to do a crossover episode with, there's these cats named Secret House Against. They have a YouTube channel. That's pretty much what they do. They just put it on YouTube and they go nuts, in depth, break down albums, lots of energy, lots of knowledge. They have, like, to me, the definitive Shrapnel review. And the only challenge doing a crossover with them is going to be there in Tokyo. So the hour scheduling the hours is going to be wild, but I love those cats. And when the right album hits, I want to dig in with them because they've got great energy. Mega and yeah, the whole crew. So the Secret House Against, go to the YouTube channel and just enjoy that. They review a lot of dope, underground, Midnight Suns and all the stuff we've talked about. They're digging in on the same wavelength. So my wife heard it and me watching it and was like, I was like, I love these guys. She's like, yeah, this sounds like right up your lane. This is exactly what you do. So what are you bumping, Superstition? What are you doing?
Oh man, what am I bumping? First I gotta give shout out to my guys at Southern Vanguard, John Doe and Eddie Meeks. Those are my real life friends, and I listen to a lot of their mix shows, man. Lately, I don't know what the hell have I been. I've been bumping those joints from Common and Pete Rock. I was pleasantly surprised,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Bro,
sounded good.
I was looking for, the Nas and Primo. When I first heard it was coming out, I was geeked about that. But after hearing the joints, this Common and Pete Rock joint, and from some mutual friends, like, yo, bro, this shit is going to be phenomenal. So I've been listening to that. Coast Contra too. I like those cats too. I like their energy and stuff like that. Bro, I listen to a little bit of everything. I think I was on a kick earlier, was just going down listening to like Atmosphere and Greaves and people like that too. So yeah, my playlist is all over the place, man. I think hell, I was listening to Shaka Khan earlier today. So it's like, just kind of mixing it up. Now that I'm not in album mode, I could probably listen to more music, but I try not to listen to too much while I'm creating or whatever. It's almost, it's like subconsciously you'll end up creating some shit similar to it or whatever. So
and I wonder how deep that goes. Like if you were recording an album and you were just listening to Mariah Carey, would you end up incorporating Mariah Carey into your rap?
Hell no, man.
Know that, man.
Look, trust me, I can listen to a whole album of a Mariah Carey. That shit ain't carrying over on a Superstition album, man. Like that shit.
You like,
hell no.
Like the melodies are so different on the. I was listening to Miami Sound Machine the whole time. Oh,
yeah, I ain't got no range like that. Like I could carry a note, but I ain't hit no Mariah Carey notes and shit, man. That's crazy, man.
You would go left on that. But shout out to Southern Vanguard. They're super chill individuals, like
absolutely
amazing, but incredible taste, impeccable taste. They're always putting together the best mixes. When they post what they're playing, I'm like, that's exactly what's great right now. Like,
I love those guys, man. Like I say, those are my real life friends. So since I moved to Atlanta, there's a group of so we do a guys night, right?
Yep.
And it's basically we meet up at like a restaurant or a bar and just hang out and talk shop. So it started out real small with like me, DJ Pocket, John Doe, Eddie Meeks from Southern Vanguard, my guy Bamboo. Then it turned into J Live showing up, John Robinson from Science of Life, like just different people showing up. So what we do is once a month, even if someone can't make it, we try to carry on that tradition. So just say if it's like all three of us or whatever, and you got something to do, then we'll still meet up and we'll still invite more people in or whatever. So we'll go in and talk, music, life. And then sometimes after that, we might go back to the studio and record something. But it's just kind of a fellowship thing of, at least, because some of us don't leave the house. We get so caught up in life. We go through a lot of stuff. Right. It's like knowing at least once a month I'll get to get away from life and my work and family and go out and hang around and be around, some talented individuals who will motivate you. And it's also turned into other things, right? So, just being there, now they have a side group of people that talk about investments and people that talk about stocks and things like that. Or they might talk about, people that play chess together and stuff. Like it's turned into like just a beautiful group of brothers just kind of fellowshipping and leaning on each other or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was trying to buy a house, DJ Pocket was a realtor and he ended up being the realtor that helped me get my house and stuff like that. So it's just building a really good connection and network of people. And I would encourage that, especially if people in your area or whatever, just put something together. Just do like a monthly guys night. Like it doesn't have to be getting drunk, getting wasted or nothing like that. Just kind of meet up at a restaurant, do some dope shit just once a month or, once every other month. Put that on the schedule because life is too short, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be homies that you wish you could have spent that last moment with. So I try to encourage people to do that because honestly, that's one of my favorite things to do is, now there's a event in Atlanta. It's called Crafts and Crates, where it's basically DJ spinning vinyl and there's craft beer all around. Right. And it's just people hanging out. It's like a cool picnic. You see Diamond D come through. You see all different type of people, whatever. So I encourage you, man, spend some time with your homies because if you're like me, you're a person that you just work all the time. You keep your head down. You need to get away from that. Get out of your own head sometimes or whatever. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, no, it's and it helps also because I think the industry is always trying to convince everyone that hip hop isn't a community.
Yeah, yeah.
or a culture.
Yeah.
This is just content and product and relax. And, no. This is a community. And like, so,
It is.
meet these people, hug these people, like, talk and it'll make everything makes more sense. Right.
Right,
Like,
right. Relationships are everything, man. Relationships and
absolutely.
community are everything. Because at some point too, you may stop doing what you're doing as far if it's music, podcasting, or whatever. Like, and these people, not everybody just does music. A lot of these people are in different fields or whatever. When I first moved to Atlanta and I had, when I had stepped away from music, I reached out to a homie, a musician who also worked, and he got me a job and things like that. Or, I was able to help somebody else. So it's like just building that community, man, can get you through some hard times if you need it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kay, do you have any recommendations?
Man, I hate to follow that, but I really enjoyed the K Tronada Timeless album.
Yeah,
I haven't heard it. Is it dope? It's dope like that?
Yeah.
Loaded it to
Okay.
the
Yeah,
I gotta check
I
it.
put it on this Saturday, and I was dancing along with it in the morning. Like, it's one of those, either Saturday night or Saturday morning album. Like,
Yeah, that Childish Gambino song is crazy. Like, it's
something put on when you're cleaning the house or something. Just something nice to put on. Like,
I think that's what I'm up. That's probably gonna be my soundtrack for this weekend because K doesn't miss, man.
No.
That's good. That's great recommendation too. I almost forgot that it just came out too. So
oh, shout out to Fick, who was on the show. Fick is his name. He got me real bad on Twitter. Like, I have this run that I've been on of, if I go to a live sporting event, the people I see will be injured. Right? It goes all the way back to Iverson. It goes all the way back. It's this, I'm on this big streak. And it continued, me going to WNBA games and everybody's gone. And so
you're definitely not getting your money's worth. Shit. You're in there watching bench players, right? Like,
it's rough. And so, like, Jerry West died, and I posted about it, and I was like, man, I'm right now I'm reading his autobiography. And
shit.
Oh,
wow.
posted
on that shit and was like,
turn my album off.
Like, you don't think you
turn my album off,
what?
bro. What kind of luck you got going on over there?
I was like, did I kill Jerry West? Oh my god,
that's wild.
So shout out to Fit getting that one. That's great stuff. I appreciate the humor there. But the autobiography is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, I want to check that out. I'm gonna go get that.
Yeah, it's so good. So yeah, and it's a lost generation of like really good players. Walt Frazier going head to head with Jerry West, and like there's some incredible ball. So
I need to check that. I'm a diehard basketball fan, college and NBA as well too. So
his story
if you ever want to hit me up and talk some shit about basketball, hey, I'm always available, man.
It's he's really unique because he was like the best player at his position, but super introverted, duper introverted and shy, and like so it was like almost Kareem style as a guard, just really reserved, and so this gives his internal voice through those events, which is dope. But, so thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Oh man, thank you, man. It's a great conversation.
Thank
man.
you for sharing the wisdom.
Thank you, bro. I feel like I'm hanging out with the homies right now, man. Like it's real dope, man. I feel like I've known y'all for a while. So always grateful for the opportunity, and like I said, just sharing wisdom and just knowledge and experience, man. Like that's how we help each other get through. So, even offline, if y'all ever have any questions about anything, reach out to me. Anybody will tell you I'm try to be one of the most down to earth people as possible, man. None of this shit is promised, bro. I'm just thankful to be alive, thankful to be doing this music shit, man.
Yeah, man. We try and keep it loose and meaningful. I always try and think of like this is like Ornette Coleman style. Jazz to come. That's how we do it.
What will tomorrow bring? What will tomorrow